Okay, we're at just on 5 past, I think, by my reckoning. So we're going to kick off. My name is Ian Collier. I work for Hanover Fairs. I'm responsible for the HR, L&D, Tech Fest and the communities that it represents. Good morning to you all. I hope you are having a lovely Tuesday morning. I hope you're not too cold. And if you are in some sort of lockdown, I hope you're all prepared and all happy and got everything at your fingertips that you're going to need for today. We're so pleased that so many of you are able to join the webinar this morning, which is featured and sponsored by Skillsoft. It's wonderful to have your continued support, Skillsoft. Their expertise in technology is unparalleled. So please, if you don't know too much more about them, please check them out. Today's session is incredibly pertinent, entitled, How do you enable employees to power up their own learning? I'm sure you're going to learn heaps during this session, alongside the great work that's been carried out with Skillsoft. We're pleased to welcome our speaker, Marie Miller, to the podium. Marie is the Manager of Leadership and Learning at the APA Group. Huge, extensive experience driving learning and organizational development across a whole range of complex organizations in the utilities, property and telecom sector. You're in for a real treat. If you have any questions or thoughts, put them in the Q&A chat box or on the Q&A session. And then we will, after about 20 minutes, have an opportunity to ask some more questions of Marie, and also we'll be introducing Louisa Golgini, who will be working with Marie to answer your questions. So without further ado, I will pass on to our speaker. It's wonderful to have you. Marie, over to yourself.
Thanks, Ian. So just waiting for the slides to come up and then we can get started. Okay, so for those of you that aren't familiar with APA Group, I thought I'd start with an overview of APA. So APA is the largest, one of the largest Australian energy infrastructure businesses. So as you can see, there's just a little bit of a snapshot here around some of those things. So APA was started around June 2000, and as you can see there, at that particular time, we were a business of around 0.6 billion. Today, and as of last August, the business had a growth of 13.1 billion. So as you can see, APA has gone through quite an aggressive growth strategy, and that's primarily in the gas pipeline business. But I will talk about our journey to date and also where the APA organisation is going. So we are listed on the ASX top 50, and I think we're around 30 on the ASX at the moment. And we currently have around 1,900 employees based here in Australia. Just another couple of things. We do own and operate a number of assets. So we've got about 22 billion worth of assets that we own and operate. As I said, historically, APA was a gas transmission business, and so we've got over 15,000 kilometres of transmission pipelines. So that's really was the core business of APA. And about 4 years ago, we started diversifying into different energy assets. So just a little bit further down, you will see that the renewable energy generation is now is forming a big part of our business. And that's both solar and wind. So we have renewable energy assets across Queensland and RWA areas of Australia. We'll just go to the next slide here. So I think this next slide really talks to and just shows the demographics of some of those assets. So we talked about some of the, primarily it started in that gas pipeline. We're now have been diversifying and will be further diversifying our energy assets. So as you can see here, we also do gas-fired generation, renewable generation, as we talked about, and electricity transmission. So in fact, 50% of our electricity transmission comes from our renewable energy parts of the business of solar and wind. We are a wholesale business. I thought that was a key thing to touch on. So we've got about 100 wholesale customers. So being customer centric is a really key part of APA. When you have such a small set of customers, it's really critical that we work very closely with those customers to make sure that we're delivering on their solutions. So it's a big part of our strategy moving forward. As mentioned, we have about 2,000 employees across APA, and over 1,200 of those sit in what we call our operations part of the business, and they're spread over 50 different locations across Australia. Part of just over 2 years ago, we had our new CEO, Rob Wheels, who has really spent a lot of time looking at, okay, what's the future of APA? And we've gone through an exercise of revising our purpose, our vision, and our strategy here at APA. And there is a huge growth and diversification agenda that we'll be undertaking over a number of obviously of years. So that will be, 90% of our business is in that the gas pipeline, as mentioned, and we will be looking to diversify that not only in different energy assets, but also diversifying in other countries. So we've got a pretty aggressive growth agenda moving forward, which is really exciting. So when we look at that from a people perspective, and we might move to the next slide, we need to make sure that we are creating a learning environment where our APA employees can build those capabilities that they need for now and for the future. And that's to ensure that we do deliver on our vision to be a world-class energy solutions. And I want to make sure that our culture really attracts, develops and retains the best. So that is going to be key. When I started in this position just over 12 months ago, I did an exercise around, did some analysis around our current learning environment. And it quickly became evident that our centralized spend was really only touching a small portion of APA employees. I think it was, it was quite staggering. And we had quite a traditional approach to learning. So a lot of that spend was spent on, I said, a small amount of people, but also was primarily face-to-face. So we needed to look at having a more contemporary and agile learning environment moving forward to make sure that we were really investing in the right capabilities. And that's where Skillsoft came into the equation. So we needed, as one of our solutions, it was really to look at how do we get learning out to all of our employees so that we can empower them to build the capabilities that they need for now and the future. So we might move to the next slide. Okay, so I thought I'd just share a little bit of a snapshot around how we launched the digital learning library. First of all, one of the things that I'm really big on is the employee experience. So we engaged a number of different employees across the organization and at different levels, and also at different roles. So making sure that when we launched the digital library, that it was meeting all of our employees' needs. And this really just shows that we had a really big campaign to initially launch our digital learning library. And as you can see, we used power and space as our analogy to really to get people really excited about the future of learning at APA. So we had a number of teasers that went out around Watch the Space, and then the activation, where we really spent a lot of time with our senior leaders and leaders around how they could support their people to power up their learning as well. So made sure that our leaders were really behind this in the first place, and then looked at launching through the Power Up Your Learning, which was really making sure that we were putting it into their hands, so empowering them to take ownership of their own learning. We've continued with that theme since our initial launch back in November of 2020, and continue to engage with our learners around this. So that's just a little quick snapshot of the APA organisation, what we're trying to achieve from a learning perspective, and how we went about launching our digital learning library, which was, one aspect of the new learning environment that we wanted to create here at APA.
Thanks, Marie. That's great.
Notice a couple of questions come through, I think, as well.
There is indeed. Louisa, is this the opportunity to bring yourself in as well to take questions and to talk a little bit more around some of these questions?
Yes, so I have some questions for Marie to enable us to delve a little bit more into the program and what she's been doing at APA with that. And we got some time at the end, I believe, to address some of the questions that are in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Go with it.
Are we happy to do it that way?
Yeah, no worries.
Excellent. I think we may even answer some of the questions if you're happy for us to start that Q&A now.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. So Marie, thank you for, it's really great to see where your company started off and the growth that you've been experiencing, and obviously looking at the program that you launched. So you mentioned that obviously one of your goals was to empower your employees, to sort of enable them to take control of their own learning, to build their skills for the future. How easy have you found it to build that culture of self-directed learning? What did it take, or what will it take if that's still a journey that you're on?
Yeah, I think empowering was we use that word on purpose. As an organisation, we're really looking at how do we empower them to be their best. So whether that was learning or the decisions that they need to make, to do what they need to do. So we really want to make sure that we're doing that and making sure that they're owning it. So one of the things that we did do around that was making sure that we briefed our leaders initially around that. And it was really about how they, as a leader, could also support their employees around their career and development. And by leveraging this, I suppose, key resource as a tool to actually take ownership of their own learning. But it was really around educating our leaders and the leaders' ability to have the conversations with our employees as well around that.
Yeah, and I think that's critical, isn't it? We know that manager support plays a critical role in empowering employees, because, obviously if they feel they've got the support, they're having the right conversations with their managers, and they've got almost the permission to spend time on their development, I think it goes a long way to ensuring that people are more engaged.
That's right. Yeah, we supplemented that as well with some webinar sessions with both the leaders and employees, so that they were really comfortable on how to use the resource and the tool to the best of their advantage, and we continue to do that as well now. Obviously, we've got new people joining the organisation. It's just making sure that they understand how best to leverage this resource.
So with that in mind, I guess your program's been very successful since launch. With learner engagement, we've seen it continue to grow month on month, which is great to see.
Yeah.
What's your approach to keeping the program front of mind and also connecting the dots for the learners so that you're continually aligning to what's important to them?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we do a lot of is really looking at, what's the focus, what's the strategy for APA, and how and what assets can they leverage from the digital learning library to support that. So there's been a big focus on inclusive leadership, on agile methodology within the organisation, leading change. I think we've all gone through quite a lot of change over the last 12 to 18 months. So those are making sure that people can easily find the assets that really align to those focus areas. So making sure that it's aligned to strategy. Also, we have a leadership capability framework. I'm sure a number of the people in the audience have got capability frameworks. So we've again aligned some of the assets in the digital learning library to those capabilities as well. So they can easily find what's applicable for them. So that those are some other things, and we're about to launch our new behaviours. I'll talk about the change agenda that we're going on at APA. So we'll be looking at how do we reinforce those behaviours through some of the assets in the digital learning library as well. So it's just a number of ways that we do that. We also look at reinforcing it through our employee life cycle as well, so throughout the year.
So it's really about aligning it to what's important to the business, but also, like you said, to the whole employee life cycle,
yep.
The initiatives that are happening in the business. So it's really embedded everywhere.
That's correct. Yeah.
So, in your, I guess, if you look at in your travels so far with this program, what's part has Skillsoft played in helping you achieve that success with your program? In what ways does your Skillsoft account team support you that helps make that partnership valuable to you?
Yeah, well, Skillsoft have been there right from the very beginning. I can't believe it was probably about 18 months. No, not even that. I think it was just as we were going into to COVID back in March last year. As I said, that was about a month after starting in the role, and I'd quickly realised that we needed to, as I said, expand our learning offerings at APA, and had made an initial call to Julie from Skillsoft. So, and Julie was fantastic in supporting me and pulling the business case together. So that we could really quickly get that over the line when it came to demonstrating our business case for this. And then the Skillsoft team were great in regards to then, as we were preparing for launch, making sure that we had access to some of those best practice information around how other organizations had gone around it, and just making sure that we had set up the platform as well, ready for launch. And I think with a lot of vendor relationships, sometimes it stops there. So once you've implemented, you don't tend to hear a lot from them. But the great thing about Skillsoft is there is that ongoing relationship and support from the team. So we meet on a monthly basis to look at, okay, how many people are leveraging the system, how many are returned users, what are they accessing, so that we can really partner to look at where we're at and what might we need to do differently going forward, and also making sure that we're aware of what's coming from a Skillsoft perspective, because it's enhancing. They're enhancing the platform. You are enhancing the platform all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. I think that's it's been a pleasure for us, I know, partnering with you and the team. You've made it really easy. But it was obviously, you're right, there's a lot that we can offer in terms of support, thought leadership, best practice examples. I know that we've also supported with some content mapping against your capabilities and your new behaviours, etc. So more than happy to continue to do that to help you hone in on the right content to support those initiatives. So so that's that's great to hear, and as I said, we really love working with you and the team. So in taking this new approach in your organisation, what challenges, if any, have you faced in taking this new approach? What would you do differently? Is there any advice for anyone looking to embark on the same sort of journey?
Yeah, well, we have had as you know, quite a really successful, take up to the platform, and in fact, we've got over double the industry average when it comes to returning learners, which is really pleasing to see. And the feedback that we get from employees and leaders is really positive as well. So, you know, that's really pleasing. So I'm always looking though that how can we improve things and how can we do things differently. So there are a number of employees across APA that obviously had interest in going into the platform, but for whatever reason have not actually, you know, looked at any assets. So there's about, I think we've had over 800 of our 1,900 people access the platform, and a good percentage of those are returning learners, as mentioned. But there's about 200 that haven't then re-engaged with the platform. So for me, it's really understanding what is it, what's got in the way of them, because they were obviously, their interest was, you know, initially tweaked.
It was peaked enough to go in.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So what stopped them? So I think that'd be the next step for us is really looking at that. So what are some of the challenges of some people in engaging in the platform? Is it time? Is it they don't know how to best navigate? So yeah, that'll be the next step for APA.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us as an account team that's working with you, it's about how do we help you close that gap? So what strategies can we then put into place to you know, engage those people that perhaps haven't, as you say, have gone in but haven't done anything else? Yeah. So, you know, as your organisational strategy evolves, you talked about growth and diversification of the business. How will you make sure that you can continue to meet the changing needs of the business with this current solution that you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that we've had huge support from our executive leaders around this. So, in fact, as we launched our program, I did an interview with our CEO around the digital learning library. So there is that great support, and I meet with and I'm continuing to meet with those senior leaders around what's the real, you know, capabilities that we need to be focusing on from an APA perspective, and also getting their support then in the ongoing campaign. So, for example, we're our group exec for the technology and transformation area of the business, given that's going to play a huge part in our strategy going forward. I regularly touch base with Hannah around some of the things that we can really be focusing on. So I think it's engaging with the leaders and also our learners to make sure that it is focusing on the right things.
Excellent. And obviously with the content, etc., that you've got in place, one of the things that we're invested in as a partner to you is to continually refine and ensure that you've got the right content in place as your business needs change and evolve as well.
Correct.
So if we look down the track, I guess it's been a while since you've launched and things are tracking really well. But if you had to look at the end game, what would success look like for APA? What shifts do you expect to see in your business? What would have changed or improved as a result of having put this program in place? Say maybe a year down the track.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's about making sure that we are equipping our people with the capabilities that they need for now and the future to deliver on our vision and our strategy. I mean, that's going to be key. So some of the ways that we measure that are through our employee engagement survey, so our culture survey, and also our exit interviews. So that was telling us that our people were really interested in learning but felt that they couldn't didn't have access to the learning that was really critical for them to be their best. So we will measure success through that aspect, through that lens, but there are obviously, we don't want to wait until, you know, we've do an engagement survey. So we continually are looking at how, you know, the measures of success is definitely around the take up and the returning users. So keeping a really close eye around that and understanding what communication is working. So what's really driving, what's working best around that. So we continue to do that. Also, it's important not just that they're acquiring the skills, but how are they applying those? So we go out to some of those top kind of learners to understand as well, you know, what they've learned and how they're applying it. And we share those stories as well with others within the organization. So it's, again, reinforcing what they can learn, but how it can be applied back in the organization. And Louise, as you know, we've also got a survey planned for later in the year.
Yes.
Around that, so that we can get a more holistic view around how people are applying.
Absolutely. And the insight survey that Marie's referring to is something that Skillsoft's developed, you know, in line with the talent for the development reporting principles framework, which really enables us to look at the efficiencies and the effectiveness of the learning in terms of how, if people can apply it, how soon can they apply it? Does it help them with their current role, future roles? Would they recommend the solution? All of those really, you know, real effectiveness measures that we otherwise couldn't tell just from looking at the, you know, numbers and the take up. So that gives us some really good insights into how effective the learning actually has been. So we're looking forward to be able to do that and get some really good metrics from that. That's excellent. I guess my final question, and we do have a few questions in the chat that will come to as well, is what are your 3 key takeaways or recommendations that you'd like to share with anyone that's looking to embark on a similar journey?
Yeah, I think what was really beneficial for us was getting that working group together initially. So as I said, we got a number of people across the organisation involved prior to launch, and that was from all different levels, but also different kind of demographics of the organisation, and really I think we took that change lens to this. As I said, we really had quite a traditional learning solutions in place, and so it was really working with some individuals to get some diverse thoughts around how we might best launch, but also continue to engage our learners across the organisation with the platform. So, getting that group involved. I think having you can't beat a good campaign to get people excited and etc. So I think, you know, for us that has worked extremely well, because I think it's become very memorable for people because of that. So so you often hear about the digital learning library referenced at APA, and in that it was really, you know, in that campaign it was really key to get our senior leaders engaged as well. So that was key, and I think the other key takeout is just embed it wherever you can. So it's the first thing. When we're talking about learning, I always think about how can we leverage the digital learning library to help support that. It may not be the whole solution, but it forms part of the solution. So it's just, as I said, just looking at every opportunity that you can to embed it.
Yeah, there's some really good themes there. I think, you know, like building that brand and awareness, which you've done so well with your theme, carrying the way through, embedding the learning everywhere, as you say, in every program initiative that's happening right across the organisation. And that executive sponsorship is critical. You know, if we don't have that sort of support from the top, then it tends to fall over.
Yeah.
So there's some really key good best practices that you've mentioned there.
Yeah, that's right. And so we're making sure that we're going back and letting them know how successful it has been as well. So that the reports that you continually provide us on a monthly basis have been really instrumental to then get to demonstrate that we're getting great results.
That's great. That's what we like to see. Well, we do have quite a few questions coming in the chat and the Q&A, so I'll do my best to go through and hopefully don't miss any key ones. But one of the first ones I've seen here is prior to launching the platform, were your people leaders already involved in assigning learning in LMS? If not, can you talk about what you've done to get people leaders to actively assign learning, if that's something that you've done?
Yeah, so I think historically, this isn't integrated into our LMS at this stage. And we wanted to get away, some of the feedback that we were getting around, I suppose some of the training that was in our LMS was more compliance related. And as I said, this was really about empowering our people to learn and continue to learn. At any time, so that actually empowering them to do it whenever it suited them was really key. So in regards to the leaders, it's more about encouraging them to use some of the assets to have the conversation with their teams. So in their education sessions, it wasn't just about how they could interact with the platform. It was more about how could they engage their teams as well in that. And so, we use assets from, we encourage them to use assets from the platform to have a discussion, for example, around, fostering an inclusive culture.
Rather than actually mandating learning.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Another question from Deanna as well is around the teaser launch that you did at the beginning. Did you find that a 1-month teaser period was the right amount of time for that initial campaign?
Yeah, I think it did, because it wasn't too long. So you wanted people to get excited, and for the time frame not to be too long. So about 4-5 weeks was really good. That's what we found anyway. Yeah.
Excellent. Did you use change champions? Can you talk about how you use them and any learnings from that?
Yeah, so the change champions were the working group that I talked about earlier. So we were really we really looked at who did we need in that working group. So making sure that we had that real mix of people, but also people from our talent cohorts as well. So we got a number of people from our talent cohorts, our graduates, our future leaders, etc. involved, and they became our change champions. And so throughout, prior to launch, we got them to go back continually to their teams to seek feedback around certain aspects that we were looking at. So they became, and then our leaders were the second kind of, I suppose, the complementary change champions that we used.
There's a question from Julie around the involvement of senior management and how engaged. So I know you talked about having them engaged. How did you gain their engagement? And how did you approach that? And how did they get them to buy into that?
Yeah, so how we got them engaged around it was, I think, one initially was educating them around the platform. I think they thought it was an LMS as well. So explaining that this was digital ready to go assets. And as I said, actually linking it back to empowering our employees, which has been a journey for APA. So again, tying it back to something that they already was a focus for them. So linking it back to the strategy around that. So, and then also how it complemented some of our existing learning offerings as well. I think one of one of the, I suppose, things that came up that they were probably a bit concerned about was, is this going to replace all face-to-face? And we've been very clear that it's not about replacing face-to-face. This is about complementing face-to-face. So I think, yeah, making sure that you're educating them as well
on that
is really critical.
Yeah, we all know that people always will say they have a preference for face-to-face, but in reality, you know, it's a much better use of everyone's time to not be delivering content face-to-face, but actually using that time to have the facilitated discussion, Q&A, debrief sessions, role plays. Much better way to spend your time than actually just, you know, trying to absorb a lot of content. So you can always blend that online content in with your face-to-face.
And that's exactly what we do. So some of the pre-work will be leveraged from the digital learning library, and some of that post workshop. I mean, we're not delivering them face-to-face necessarily now, it's more virtually, but yeah, it is about that blended, it's about complementing.
So there's a question from Mark around skills evaluation or competency matrix. Do you have that sort of solution, ideally customizable to different business unit focuses with possibly links to development training? So have you sort of built that competency matrix solution that links out to learning?
Yeah, so we've started with our leadership capability framework, because that is core to all employees across APA. And we do have a number of competency frameworks that look at some of that, I suppose, functional capability. So yeah, that will be the next step around that. So yeah, starting off with really, I suppose, some of the core capabilities across the organization, and then we're focusing around some of the other areas. So we did purchase the technology and transformation library. So again, it was working with that particular group around what were the key kind of competencies that were going to be really critical for that. And those were things like the agile methodology, Power BI, so that those are a number of the different capabilities that they're really leveraging from the platform.
So the question here around the promotional campaign. Did you use Skillsoft's default promotional campaign material, or did you add to it? You know, if you added to it, what additional promotional things did you do? Obviously, you've got that, you know, space and rocket theme, but what else did you do? To go into a bit more detail around that.
So I think we leveraged what best practice had been there from, you know, the Skillsoft you had shared with us around it, but we really wanted to make it our own. So the theme was really, you know, that theme, the look and feel. So even when they go into the platform, it has that look and feel of APA around it. So that was really key. And obviously with our campaign, I think we all use different tools within an organization. So Workplace, we have Workplace, which is a Facebook for work. So we've definitely leveraged that. We've got our intranet. We make sure as well that part of the actual campaign is because we do have quite a large blue collar workforce, that we're making sure that some of the campaign also is suited to them. So through their toolbox talks, etc. So again, it's how do we equip the leaders to then have that conversation as well.
Yeah. And in terms of that promotional campaign, as part of that, did you promote the mobile app as well? Have you got people that are actually using the mobile app? Has that been embraced? I guess that would have been quite a new way of learning for a lot of people.
Yes, yeah. So we did. Yeah, that was definitely part of the campaign. So we had a number of different stories lined up. You know, with the change champions, from the change champions around it, and one of them was around how somebody So it's actually showing and demonstrating how a person was using the platform through their mobile device. So yes, we do, and we do continue to do that as well.
Excellent. Okay. You talked about your champions. Did you handpick your champions, or did you actually, or did you sort of volunteers that came into that?
So they weren't necessarily handpicked. We did know that we wanted to go out to our I suppose our talent pipelines, but it was more seeking who would be interested. So versus tapping particular people on the shoulder. So it was going out to that whole cohort and then asking who was interested in it.
Okay.
So yeah.
And did that line up, sort of those people that put their hand, or did that line up with them being more active learners, or would you also look at who were the most active learners and perhaps approach them as well to say, hey, we've noticed you're using this a lot. Would you like to be the voice of?
Yeah. So we use those for those active learners. We're using those in our ongoing campaign. Yeah, and it's again, it's just about educating people.
Yes.
Around, how you can best leverage the platform. So yeah, we do tap those, obviously, because we're able to identify who they are through the reporting, etc. Yeah,
I think we just recently look at who was one of your top badge earners.
Yeah. She's got 45 badges.
Yeah, we like to call that out.
A serial learner.
Yeah, that's right. and they're great people to have a focused story on in your newsletter or something, or on the internet. So hey, it often brings out the competitive spirit in everybody else when they see that. Yeah. Well, I think that's all the questions I can see, unless I've missed any key ones. If anyone would like to put anything else in the chat or the Q&A, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, that might take us to just about the end of that. Is that right?
I think so. Folks, if anyone has any questions, please put your hand up or answer the put some in the chat. We can go through any last questions we have. Also, I wanted to say, Marie and Louisa, if you wanted to put your email address in the chat as well, then any of the folks would like to be able to reach out to you, then I think that would obviously be fantastic. The session, which was really, really good, has been recorded, so it will be available to you if you want to listen to it again. And any further questions? Yeah, we've got Marie there, and Louisa. Thank you so much for joining us, Marie. Thanks, Louisa, for joining us as well. To all of you who joined us as well, please, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in Australia and in the world, because I know there's some people from outside of Australia as well. Have a wonderful day, and we will be in touch about our forthcoming events, which are happening in November. The Tech Fest, which we should be out of lockdown and everyone will be happy and be able to meet each other. In the meantime, have a great time. And a great day. And again, Marie and Louisa, thank you so much for joining us and speaking this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing everyone later.
Yeah.
Cheers, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See ya.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.